All right, so today I'm here with Senior Associate AD of UNI for Revenue Generation, Scott Peace. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm great, Ryan. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's always good to talk to a senior associate and the collegiate level and of your nature. And let's just get right into it. You've had 12 years of experience in collegiate athletics, 12 plus. Coming up on 1 year at UNI, I believe today is today the 1 year.
It's the 22nd of July will be 1 year, so we're
Okay,
right
yeah.
there.
All right. So I saw that you got posted on this day a year
Yeah.
ago on their
Yep.
website. So I thought maybe it was the 1 day, but happy coming up 1 year at
Yeah.
UNI. Let's just go right into your career. You've made stops at Evansville, Kent State, UNI. Just kind of go through it and share your journey.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So, born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, which, as you've kind of alluded to with that list, I haven't been back home since about 2 weeks post college graduation. So, I was University of Louisville undergrad student, did a number of different internships across marketing and fan engagement, community relations, and then I spent my senior year in the ticket office there getting experience. From there, I kind of got to graduation and realized ticketing was really what I had the most experience in, having spent that full year in the ticket office. So I kind of naturally went that route when looking for jobs. So, first job out of college was an account executive for ticket sales at the University of South Florida down in Tampa, which at the time was IMG Learfield Ticket Solutions. They've rebranded like three times since then and are now Amplify. So did that job for 13 months. It was the classic 80 call a day, smile and dial, basically hand you the phone book, good luck kind of job, which was phenomenal experience outside of right outside of college. I didn't necessarily want to do that forever, but it was a great experience. From there, moved back closer to home to the University of Evansville, which is in Southwest Indiana. Ended up spending almost 9 years there between the ticket office and then switched into a marketing role and then kind of a marketing plus external role. And then by the time I left, I was also our major gift officer overseeing fundraising and kind of all the above. So a lot of hats at a school that size, but good experience. And then spent a year and a half at Kent State as Associate AD for marketing, oversaw the ticket office there as well. And then, like you said, I've been here at UNI for almost a year. It's really kind of that head of external role, but just kind of through that revenue generating lens, which all of this is kind of focusing. We're all kind of shifting to that anyway. So it is kind of that external role overseeing marketing, ticketing, communication, sponsorships, and so on, but with kind of through that revenue lens.
Yeah. Yeah, no, cool. It's really cool to see you kind of stay in the same area in a sense of at least a part of the country. But
Yeah.
kind of wanted to go in back to the focus in on the Evansville, those 9 years there. What's that like to kind of transition into new roles and kind of getting promoted as time went on for 9 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Evansville's a really unique place. So they are Division One. They're in the Missouri Valley Conference. Kind of ironically, because that's where I'm back in here in Northern Iowa. They only have about 1,800 students, so really small private school. To get 100 students at a basketball game was a win at a place like that. But what I will say is they had tremendous community support, especially given how small the school was. But they have years of history dating back to when they were Division Two, and they won five Division Two national championships through '50s through the '70s, and so wonderful fan base there. I came into that as like a 23-year-old, I think I was director of ticketing. Didn't have a clue. Thought I knew probably more than I did at the time. Between my interview and my first day, the AD actually retired, so my boss at that time was now the interim
Wow.
AD. And to no fault to him, didn't have a ton of time to sit down with me and give me a lot of direction. So it was truly a lot of kind of trial and error, and there was plenty of failure those first few years. But I think kind of being forced to figure things out like that, probably the best experience I could have gotten early on in my career. I had two interns at the time, Josh Remington and Justin Bear, who I was only like 9 months older than at the time as their supervisor. And Josh is at Washington now, and Justin is at East Carolina. So super cool that they're still in it. And when we were working like 13 hours a day, eating pizza in the ticket office at night, trying to figure it all out. And like those are honestly some of my fondest memories working in college athletics. So just to go from that kind of younger person to that senior leadership role was really neat. So, I transitioned to marketing probably 3 or 4 years into my time at Evansville, which is really where I wanted to go kind of the whole time. So there was an opening, and I finally got to get into marketing, which was more where my passion was and what my minor was in college and all those things. So was able to figure that out. Was during kind of an exciting time where we hired a new coach. We were celebrating our 100th year of basketball. We'd signed on with Learfield, so there was a lot of changes happening like simultaneously that it almost felt kind of like a fresh start in a way. And then COVID was during shortly after this time. Came back from COVID, was able to oversee the external team, so that was really the first kind of big time leadership role where there was multiple people kind of under that umbrella. And then was just continued to give opportunity. I went into that job not thinking I'd be there more than 2 years, and then every 2 years something would happen. I was able to get my master's there, was promoted 4 times in the 9 years I was there. So I would just continue to give opportunity and fail and figure it out. And it kind of became home for us. Both our kids were born there and so on. So great experience. Like I said, had to wear a ton of hats, but I am so much better as a professional for having had those 9 years, no doubt about it.
Yeah, what came natural in those kind of instinctual positions you were in, and ticketing, marketing? What kind of came natural to you, and what would you have to learn on the fly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you're an undergrad and kind of those younger years where you're kind of observing those higher level people and what they do, you don't really get a good sense, I think, for what all really goes into that, and just having that additional layer of responsibility and being accountable for a lot of things. So I think that's one thing that you have to get used to and kind of learn. I think, some of the intangibles though, you talk about controlling the things you can control in terms of work ethic and attitude and being on time and being timely with your responses, like all those kind of things. I think if you can master those early on, I'm a huge believer that those kind of controllable things will take you super far, even if maybe you don't have a ton of things early on else to point back to. Just controlling those controllable things makes a huge difference. And then some of that other stuff comes with it through
Yeah,
experience and other things.
yeah. If you rewind back to when you said like the best moments were just hanging out with the guys in like the ticket office, that was literally just me a couple months ago. It was like waiting around for either an event to start or like you
That's
said,
exactly
just
it.
in the
Yep.
ticket office, you're just sitting there and chilling and talking and
Yeah.
either in my sense not getting paid, or for you is either unpaid or probably pretty low. But
Yeah. Yeah.
those
Exactly.
those moments are something you won't forget.
That's true.
But yeah, then you kind of transitioned into Kent State. How'd you get there? How'd that kind of transition go?
Yeah, so, we were about halfway through what was my ninth basketball season at Evansville, and there had been a lot of change. There was a lot of coaching changes. We had an AD change. We had some administrative changes. And, I kind of took a step back and realized I had probably kind of hit my ceiling at Evansville. And I'm someone who's really passionate about continuing to grow and being hungry for opportunity. And I just felt like I had kind of done everything that I was going to do at Evansville. And, being 2 hours from my hometown and having raised both our kids, like that was a hard decision to come to, but I think I really realized it was what was best for us at that time. So I kind of started to explore that fall into that winter, some other opportunities, and obviously wasn't going to leave for something that I didn't feel was right. And ended up having some conversations with Kent State about their opening. And I think what I was excited about, one, it had football. Evansville does not have football. And so from a marketing perspective, up to that point, I had no football experience at all. And, to be honest, I think that it hurt me in some interview processes throughout those 9 years where you maybe get to the final round and there's someone who has football experience. And then there was me who was just kind of saying,
Yeah,
trust me, I can do this.
yeah,
Versus the other person who said, look what I've done, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
I wanted to get football experience. This would allow me to do that. It was still reasonably close to home. It was about 5 hours from Louisville. So from the family perspective, that was still pretty reasonable. And it just felt like I was able to kind of really focus back in on what I love to do and the passion, which is the marketing side of things. And I had gotten so far removed from that, I think, at Evansville with just so many things on the plate. And, you're maybe doing 10 different things, but how well can you really do any one of those things is kind of how I was starting to feel. So wanted to get back into that. And then, through conversations, you start to meet some of the people there, and it just felt like the right fit and that kind of thing. And that's truly what it was. Leaving Kent State, to jump ahead a little bit, after that year and a half was super hard. We loved our neighborhood. We loved, where we were. We liked living in Ohio. Just fantastic people at Kent State. The opportunity was everything I had hoped it would be. I was given every opportunity to succeed and do all the things that I felt like I hadn't had a chance to do yet. So
Yeah.
obviously I did end up leaving after a pretty short amount of time, but it had nothing to do with the experience. It was incredible.
Yeah, so you're kind of mentioning it, but how do you be comfortable somewhere and then just like not abruptly, but how do you balance like being comfortable somewhere and knowing that you need to get to that next step in your career?
That's hard. It really is hard. I think it only gets harder when you have a young family. So,
Yeah,
my wife and I, at the end of the month, will be celebrating 13 years of marriage. And then
congrats.
we had two little boys that just turned 10 and 3 earlier this month. So, July's always eventful for us.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
when it's not just you and it's like, hey, what do you think about picking up and, and doing this again and moving? And, the last several moves that I just referenced were all further and further each time from home. So we went 2 hours Evansville, 5 hours Ohio, 8.5. So it's not like we're getting closer to home or it's like we have ties in any of these places because we didn't.
Yeah,
So I'm super grateful for the support system I have at home, and none of this would have been possible without that. And there's a lot of long nights and weekends where you're not home, and there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to make, but I think your family almost makes more. So I think if you have a good support system at home, it makes it easier. I got married in college between my junior and senior year, so I've never kind of had that. In my professional life alone. Like I'm a little unique in that how early I got married, and
that's
so I
cool.
haven't necessarily had that experience and what that would be like. So I don't want to say it'd be easier if it was just you, because I think when you set down roots somewhere and try to leave, that's difficult. But definitely not going to sugarcoat it. That's some of the hardest stuff. Some of the conversations, even with the kids, like, hey, my son was in 3 schools in 2 years, for example, between,
Yeah, I'm sure
you
that's
know,
hard.
yeah, it's not easy. And so I hope to be here for an extended amount of time. I guess I'll say
Yeah,
that too, because I think the older everyone gets and the family, a little more difficult those conversations are. But I think a lot of times the reality of it is you have to be willing to move on, to move up and grow. And if that's important to you, then you just kind of got to weigh priorities.
yeah, for sure. Just being in that kid's mindset. It's like
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to I still live where I was born, so that's
Yeah, same. Like my parents are still
yeah,
in the house I was born in. I lived there basically until I got married in college.
yeah.
And so I had moved never. And then,
Hmm.
now I've lived in 5 states and however many years.
Yeah,
So I know how I probably would have felt if we were moving
yeah, no, for sure. I'd feel the same way. There's a lot of teases from my dad, like, "Hey,
around.
we might be going this way." But luckily, we just kind of stayed and stuck to where we were. But
Yeah.
transitioning to UNI, overseeing marketing, ticketing, and annual giving.
Yeah.
Just kind of go over that and the Panthers Scholarship Club too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's ultimately why I'm here. It was just the next logical step in my career. And, having been at Kent State only a year and a half, I think it came a little sooner than I expected, but it was just one of those things I couldn't pass up. And we had an AD change here at UNI about a little over a year ago. And it was someone I had known. Her name's Dr. Megan Franklin. So she was at Drake, also in the MVC before. So we knew each other from that MVC kind of side of things when I was at Evansville. And it was truly one of those NACDA convention conversation in the hotel lobby kind of things that blossomed into a job offer a few weeks
Hmm.
later. And things you only hear legend of, but apparently do happen in real life.
Yeah,
And I've told her this too. Like the first thing I said when we were talking about it is like, I appreciate this, but we're not moving to Iowa. There's no way. And of course, here I am now. I like to joke about that, but just hearing like kind of the vision for the department, it just really felt like a good opportunity. I've always had a ton of respect for you and I, having been in the MVC for so long, and I always thought of them as kind of the class of this league, and even behind the scenes now still do. Um, I tell people too. I was a finalist for a job in 2016, way back here at UNI, that I didn't get, and so that just kind of proves that like I've actually tried to be here before
yeah,
and have that respect. Um, so many of our staff, especially on the external side, is new. Several of them are newer than I am, even. Those that aren't have only been here maybe a year more than I have. So there was a really good group here that was kind of motivated and hungry and not hung up on the way things used to be done or anything like that. But mixed with that was a core of coaches who have all been super successful here, and many of them have been here 15 plus years. So there's stability on that side, but this young, hungry staff on the other side. And then just the ability to, marketing was kind of the core responsibility, and the ticket office reported up through me at Kent State. But here it's truly all the above, marketing, ticketing, communications, the Panther Scholarship Club, our annual fund, our value on ESPN broadcasts, Learfield, anything kind of external facing, for the most part, kind of funnels up through me. So it was just an opportunity to kind of continue to grow, like I said. And but at the end of the day, it was not something that we could have said no to. And a year later, I couldn't be more excited to have been here. And it's the right choice. That's what you want to
Yeah.
look back after a year and make sure I made the right choice. And there's no doubt about that. So
Yeah.
a lot of exciting things going on here.
No, that's awesome. Kind of going back to the MVC, it seems like as it's not a Power Four, it seems like it's really tight and it's really close.
Yeah.
Like you have multiple stops in there, and kind of just talk about, is there like a group chat or is it like just talk about how close the relationships are in the conference and how you can kind of bounce off each other.
Yeah, I think it's evolved a lot in the, you know, I was actually thinking about this the other day. Had I never left Evansville, I would have hit 11 years earlier this week. So I guess in the 11 years, I've been either in the league or still keeping tabs on it because, once you're in it that long, you kind of become a life. I love the MVC. I'm like a sucker for
Yeah,
Valley Hoops and all the above. But
yeah,
I think it's changed. Like there used to be a lot more opportunity to see people face to face. There were meetings at conference tournaments. We had a summer meeting in St. Louis where you would get together, and I don't know. I think back then it felt like there was a little more personal interaction and collaboration maybe than there is now. There's been some change at the conference league office, and COVID changed the way people communicate a
yeah,
lot. So I think it's changed and evolved. What I will say, and I think it's true of the MVC and pretty much anyone in the industry, and it's how you and I are talking right now, is like people are willing to have conversations. They like to bounce ideas. Like so rarely will you find someone that says no to a conversation like that. So I think that's true throughout this league. If there's anyone you want to kind of pick your brain, it's easy to pick up the phone and have those conversations, even if we don't see each other in person quite as much.
yeah,
The door's open though.
yeah. Going back to the sucker for MVC hoops, I can attest my roommates. I was in a fraternity, so
Yep.
my senior roommates this past year, they're either gambling on it or I mean it's always just on. It was Evansville versus probably UNI or something, but
Yep.
every night of the week there'd be college hoops on our TVs, and so most of the time it actually was the MVC, and I'm like, you guys betting on this? Like, yep, yeah, we are, and I was like, oh my god,
I tell you what, between Valley Hoops and Maction football, there's some cult followings behind both, and I'm firmly a member of both. I don't know, something about it I just love. I like to root for the underdog.
it's probably an 80% of TVs and fraternities around the world or
Oh yeah,
around the country. So,
it's just such a unique thing. I don't know.
but yeah, no, that's super cool, and I appreciate you sharing that,
Yeah.
the kind of advice about that. But let's just kind of dive into stuff going on at UNI at with the year you've had, and kind of looking at your accomplishments, getting a new basketball court, top of the MVC Directors Cup. Wrestling, just breaking attendances left and right. Just kind of go through the sports and how you've seen the year there and all the accomplishments you've had.
Yeah, no, it's been super exciting over the last year, and to be clear, we have a great team here, and nothing that you mentioned and beyond would have been possible without them. But we had a football season that ended up, I think we were 3-9, but we still had our largest single game attendance in 7 years, and our largest average attendance in the first time over 10,000, I think, in like 9 years. So we made some real progress there. We did have a coaching change in the off season, so now there's some excitement behind a new coach paired with our domes being renovated for football too. We're in phase two, which includes all new seating, some graphics and signage, an elevator, and some premium areas we haven't had before. The building turns 50 next year. This is really the first major renovation in the history of that building, if that kind of tells you anything. So they're putting purple seats in right now, which is exciting. So to be able to kind of pair that next year, we're excited about that. Yeah, wrestling had an unbelievable season. They spent the majority of the year in the top five in the rankings. We had our largest venue crowd in our arena for wrestling earlier in the year against Oklahoma State, and then later just beat the overall record across any sport. And we sold out our Iowa State duel, and we beat them. And
Nice.
we had 7,300 in the building for that. It was just that's something I'll never forget. We had some fun promotions around that. We've had hot tubs at basketball games, live tattoo artists at wrestling duels.
I have both of those written down. The
Oh,
Panthers and
we can get to that. Like I could talk
yeah,
to you for an hour about those alone. So I won't go too much detail on that. But with just some fun promotions, we really just wanted to find a way to make a splash and show our fan base like we are trying. We're hearing you that you want to see some new and exciting things. I think if you talk to people in the Cedar Falls area, it's probably been a breath of fresh air. And yeah, I mean, a lot of that translates to strong revenue, strong ticket sales, attendance. Top of the Directors Cup, like you said, at the MVC, second in the MVC standings for their All Sports trophy. So we feel like we're on the right track, but we definitely are still just getting started. But super exciting year.
well, I think that speaks to you and your efforts as well, along with your team, that you're overseeing all of this and you're seeing these accomplishments in year one. And I think that speaks a lot about you and about your team. So congrats to you guys for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but you were kind of leading into my next question right there was how do you engage and interact with like the student body and the Cedar Falls area that like you mentioned, just kind of how do you engage and interact with the community to provide that outlet that they want
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, I think when it comes to students, especially, and becomes more true the older I get because the college students stay the same age always, right? When you work on a campus, but now I turned 34 last month, so I'm further and further removed from pop culture and all the
Yeah.
things. Just kind of feel a little older. So I'm a big believer in leaning on your student workers, your entry level staff, and empowering them and entrusting them to try new ideas, to let you know what's popular, and like I said, you got to trust them too. You got to take a chance, and just because it's not something that appeals to you or you fully understand, it doesn't mean it won't be a successful promotion or initiative. And I've seen that happen many times here on campus. I think we're trying to meet the students where they are and kind of bridge that gap. There's a literal road that divides basically the rest of campus and athletics, and that's true of a lot of campuses. I've found Evansville was the same way. It was one side of the street or the other. Trying to bridge that gap and just be present on campus and be in places where other students are that aren't necessarily our own events, and kind of double down on the fact that our student athletes are students. They are their peers, and they want their support. In terms of the community in general, I think and this has been true every step of the way for me. I'm not afraid to try some outside the box, off the wall kind of ideas that get people talking and kind of break through the clutter. And I believe in the experience that we provide if we can get people there. So if we can get them through the door one time through something maybe a little off the wall, definitely believe in the product that we have, that people are going to want to come back. And I think that's part of why we've seen some growth is we've been able to get some people that haven't been back for a while and show them that things have changed. So yeah, I think kind of pairing those two things, obviously tons of strategy we could get into, but I think people have seen that we've listened to their feedback and are acting on it, and we're not waiting till the end of the season to act on it. We're implementing things, even as simple as like we had beer lines that were super long at football. The next week we had a grab and go station that we
Yeah.
kind of created off to the side, and that solved
Yeah.
the issue. So we didn't have to wait till the end of the year to do that. We waited, we were on the road a week, and then we're back and it's fixed. So
Yeah.
listen to your people and take action as soon as you can.
For sure. Our basketball, or not basketball, our baseball team this past year unexpectedly did really, really well. And so like we had that same situation of lines were too long. I mean, they were literally out the door, out of the stadium. And
Yeah.
so they put up grab and goes. And like, yeah, it was week 3 or week 4, they put up those grab and goes. And
Yeah.
effectively moved the lines and it shortened them. So yeah, just kind of being on top of things and yeah, not waiting to the end of the season,
Right.
but doing it right away. But I want to talk about the Panthers in Paradise, and I want to talk about the takedowns and tattoos.
I want to talk about it too, so that's great.
Let's get into it. Let's do it.
So I'll start with the Panthers in Paradise. So, I always like to say this too. I think a lot of good ideas are kind of stolen by other teams. There's less and less original ideas. So to
It's a
be clear,
copycat league.
our director of marketing, Jake Weidrich, worked previously at a Division II school called Northern State, which is in South Dakota. And they've been doing an event called I Hate Winter every year for like 20 or 30 years. And similar concept where basically they bring in a hot tub courtside, everyone dresses up tropical, even though it's, January in South Dakota. And, it's this fun thing. So we wanted to, it was a hit too. And like, That was like the one time a year where like Northern State was the place to be in that state amongst other
Yeah.
schools like South Dakota State and South Dakota. And
Yeah.
so luckily he had that experience prior of putting that event on a couple of times in his time there. So we kind of had a blueprint to an extent. What we didn't realize was just all the hoops that we would have to jump through, which is probably fair, and maybe we should have considered that. It sounds like they didn't have quite as many of those at Northern State, but luckily, I mean, we started this process. I don't know. The game was in January. We probably started, early to mid fall, which good thing because of all the stuff we had to do. So one, we had to find a hot tub. So we ended up partnering with Tubs R Us in Waterloo, Iowa. They
Nice.
provided us 2 tubs and actually became a corporate partner of ours through Learfield so we could really do it right. And he was willing to bring the tubs, take them away, take care of the chemicals because we had it for 3 straight games. It wasn't just a one night thing.
Full
And
service.
yeah, the whole thing. He was at every game, so on. So that was like step one. And then we had to get approval from risk management on campus. And then we had to get approval from legal on campus. And then we had to get approval from like the state electricians board because there's water and cords and all the things you would
Yeah.
not want to get electrocuted. And every step of the way, like we kept being like, oh my gosh, this is still progressing, and I think we're going to be able to do this. So luckily, our venue is really well set for this, where we were able to push back some of our bleachers on the end zone to make room for this. And we wanted to find a weekend where we had both men's and women's basketball. It was important for us to include both programs in that. So we actually had a Friday, Saturday, Sunday where we played women, men, women. But we had all sorts of fun promotional videos, both at the hot tub dealership and on campus and like the rec center pool. We ended up doing a beach towel giveaway at the women's game, a replica jersey giveaway at the men's game. We had all sorts of props and encouraged people to wear tropical stuff and lays and sunglasses. And
That's awesome.
teams went 3-0. Coaches got in the tubs. It was just like a dream.
Dream scenario.
The men's game, I mean, you can't make this up. They stormed back at the end for this exciting come from behind victory. We had a guy hit a 94-foot putt during a timeout. We had a guy hit half court shot for pizza at half, like everything, like Marker's dream.
Yeah.
This was all the Panthers of Paradise game. Ended up being our second highest attended game of the year behind our rivalry game with Drake, which was one of the larger crowds we've had like this decade. And like, there's no doubt to me that it was because of that promotion, because there was nothing else kind of spectacular going on around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully there's some bonuses involved after that.
Yeah. So it was just incredible. Like there was other partners that are like, hey, we want to get involved with that next year. So we do plan to do it again and even do it
That's awesome.
a little bit bigger. The hot tub guy, Chris, he's in. He's awesome. So shout out to Chris. So that was that one. The other one with, do you want me to go into that with the tattoos?
Yeah.
Okay. So to back up, we had a back-to-back days with wrestling in January where we competed against Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, both of which are usually spectacular in wrestling, especially Oklahoma State. So we were already having a great year. We'd already beaten Nebraska. We were, top 10, I think, at that time, maybe even top 5 by that point. And we ended up having 6,000 against Oklahoma State, a little less than that against Oklahoma the next day. But we had a mechanical bull on the concourse to kind of play into the kind of cowboy feel.
Yeah.
And just, great vibes at the event. You kind of walk away from something and it feels right. And you're like, that was a good event. Felt like that. We knew Iowa State was coming in about a month later, which is obviously an in-state duel. They were also top 15 in the country. It was just the stars were aligning for an event like that, and we were like, well, what can we do to take it from like 90% sold to a sellout, and then what it eventually became the venue record across any sport. And what we came up with was basically having a live tattoo artist at the duel in the concourse. It is crazy, but it's less crazy as I explain it. So the tattoo artist, he's local, and he was a UNI wrestling alum from about, I think, 7 years ago. So we had that tie of the alum who owned a shop. Very similar, only we had much less time to figure this out. We had to call our friends at legal and risk management. Had to get the AD's approval. She's been great through all these weird ideas. But we also wanted the president to give his blessing because he comes to all of our events, and we didn't want him to show up and him learn about it by showing up and seeing it happening. Like, that just didn't feel right. So we
Head coach is getting a tattoo on the face.
Right. We were able to get approval for that. So it all came together super quick this time. What we ended up doing, because we thought there'd be a lot of interest, is basically doing like a lottery system. Like if you're interested, put your name in. We ended up having like 350
Wow.
people apply, and then we were able to do 8 tattoos that day. So we picked 8 winners. Um,
Were they all
no,
UNI related? The tattoo?
they all, yeah. We had like 8 options, I think, that were a combination of like current logos, vintage logos, some like sayings and things like that relevant to you and I. There were like 6 of us from staff that went earlier in the week to get tattoos from the guy as kind of like a practice run,
Yeah.
including yours truly. So I do have a UNI tattoo that I'll have with me forever.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it all came together. It did exactly what we wanted to. It helped fill that last 10% of the arena, and just made for like just a great day. We ended up winning. Like I said, we set that attendance record, and just it was crazy, and it makes for a good story. But no one was hurt in the process of either of
Yeah.
those, so we're planning on actually doing both to a little larger scale
That is
this year. So
amazing.
we'll report back on that.
That is amazing. Just courtside hot tubs with tattoos.
Who would have thought at you and I?
No,
Yeah,
no, not me.
not me either.
That's truly incredible, and I'm hoping that you guys do something new this. What any plans this year of that you want to share or can share?
No, we are going to do the two again. That's our plan. Nothing yet. And honestly, both of those especially the tattoos, kind of came naturally. So I anticipate we'll do something like that again. Ideally, I think we'd kind of find that kind of niche, weird thing for all of our ticketed sports. So if we can find football and volleyball, something similar. So we'll see. But the wheel's always turning in my head. I promise that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't doubt it at all. With these ideas that you've had and actually implemented, so that's super cool. Did these lead you to representing UNI at the National Association of Collegiate Marketing Administration or
Yeah,
Administrators?
yeah.
Did that lead to that?
So we they have their annual convention in June. It was in Orlando this year. So we submitted a number of initiatives that we did throughout the year, but those two in particular ended up winning silver awards at the convention, which you never do it for that reason, but to be recognized amongst
Yeah.
a nationwide group is always special. So that was fun to celebrate that too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Way to represent your
Yeah,
college. Just kind of rounding it out, Scott. I just want to thank you so much for coming on here. I'll just ask a couple kind of personal questions for
sure.
myself and hopefully people listening and kind of getting advice for you. But what was the most pivotal moment of your career? Kind of going through all your stops, and maybe it was a transition to another, like you mentioned earlier. But what would you say was the most pivotal moment?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and probably one that's hard to give a single answer to.
Yeah.
I think it's a couple things. So just being hired in that first ever job and like someone, taking a chance on you. My boss at South Florida, her name was Courtney Simons, and I found out after the fact there was like 100 applicants for that job, and so to emerge
Oh,
kind of almost randomly for that job, like she could have gone so many different directions,
yeah.
and then you sit and wonder kind of where your trajectory would be like without it. So just someone taking the chance on me in that role,
Yeah.
and then kind of moving from home, getting out of the comfort zone. I think the experience I had at Evansville, where so many, I mean, we do another episode just about that, but all the things that happened there and all the experiences and ups and downs and all those things, wouldn't have traded that for anything. Like I said earlier, I think it made me who I am now. So that was huge. I think transition to Kent State was another one where it was that opportunity to really do some things that I had never done before and take a deep dive in the areas that I loved, and get that football experience and some of those things, and then obviously being here at UNI now and kind of that really big leadership role on senior staff. So I know that's not one, and that's kind of a cop out
Yeah.
to give you
No,
like
it's
5 answers, but I mean it's all part of the journey, and it's all
yeah. It's how you got
kind
to
of
where you are
equally
now.
important. Yeah, so I'd say kind of different things at different stops, but they all are important.
You mentioned some names in there. Who were some of your maybe mentors or like major influences that led you to your career path?
Yeah, so Mark Spencer was the athletic director at Evansville for 95% of the time that I was there, and I credit him a lot for all the opportunities that I had there. I mentioned I was promoted 4 times in the 9 years, and all 4 of those were him, and So he repeatedly, invested in me and continued to give me chances and to figure things out and grow. And so I've always been super grateful for that. And I think it's one of those things where maybe you were held to kind of a higher standard than other people, but then you take a step back, and you realize that was a positive thing, and that he was doing that to only better you in your career and things like that. So always grateful for that. There's a pair of deputy ADs at Kent State that I still stay in touch with now. Suzette McQueen, who was my supervisor when I was at Kent State, who hired me there. She's on the external side, and then Greg Gloss is basically the deputy on the internal side there. We still have a quarterly call to stay in touch, and I don't know, it's just nice to kind of have that contact and have someone you can bounce ideas off of and continue to invest in you. So appreciate both of them. And then our AD here at UNI, Megan Franklin, who hired me here, and it's kind of to be hand selected by someone in their first AD job to kind of come along for the journey, and that I don't take that lightly at all. So it's been great over the next year, and look forward to the next several.
Yeah, those are great names and great people for you, I bet. Is a master's required for where you are, or for someone trying to get to where you are?
That's always a tough one. I think required, probably not. Strongly, strongly encouraged, I would say yes. I think the part that I would elaborate on, though, I think people sometimes feel like they need to do it immediately after they graduate undergrad and just hop right into it. I don't necessarily think that's the case at all. Like for me, I was 3 years into my professional career when I started grad school and was able to do it at night at the place I was already working for. It was covered as part of the compensation package. A lot of schools offer that to employees. So I'd say it's something you should probably consider, but maybe don't rush into it if it doesn't feel like the right time in your life. I think that's fine. But the further and further you hope to go, I think at a certain point, you're probably going to need it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people my age are kind of struggling with that question, at least from my sense and who I've talked to. So thanks for answering that.
Yeah.
And then what would you tell your 22-year-old self right now if you were going into this kind of world of NIL?
So I was 22 way back in 2013. So
It's not too far.
not too far, but a lot's changed, right, between now and then. Yeah, I guess I would say as tumultuous as things are going to be in the college athletics landscape, like still do it. Just be someone who's flexible, looking for opportunities and things. Like there's a lot of negativity and scared mindset, and just the unknown is a scary thing, and it is. But just be someone who finds the positives and opportunities in every situation, and just no regrets. So for my 22-year-old self, so
Yeah.
I could have never guessed that college athletics looks like it does in 2025, but still do it.
Yeah. This kind of goes hand in hand. Last question is, what advice do you have for college kids now or recent grads like myself?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably go on and on about that, and it's part. I'm very passionate about trying to help and give back to people who were in the shoes that I were in once upon a time, and the first thing I'd say, and we talked about this before we started, is just start early. Like if you're serious about this and you're going to be a sport management undergrad student, start early. Get as much experience in as many different areas as you can. Maybe more importantly, meet as many different people as you can, because especially early on, it truly is more about who you know than what you know. And real answer is probably both, but you do also need to know people.
Yeah.
Speaking my own experience, be willing to move away, like if that's what it takes to reach some of your career goals and it makes sense in your life to be able to do so. I moved away to Tampa, Florida. It's the first time I lived out of home, and that was one of the best experiences I could have had because it forced me to just have a new experience.
Yeah.
Do hard things, get out of your comfort zone. I think, growth is usually on the other side of hard things. People say, I believe that's true. Just be open to opportunities maybe you weren't expecting. Don't be so tied up and I have to be at a Power 4 school or I have to do a professional team at the highest level in the big leagues. Like, be open to opportunity because, a lot of people have to start somewhere else to get up to those areas. So,
For sure.
and then just be a decent person, be a good teammate at work, respond to your emails in a timely fashion, do what you say you're going to do, be accountable and respond. Like, that can take you so far. I said it earlier a little bit. If you can just do those very basic things, have a good attitude, do what you say, respond to emails in a timely fashion, you'd be surprised what that can unlock for a person.
Yeah. Well, Great beard, great hair, great conversation.
Great way to end that.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it so much, and I'm gonna take all that advice that you just gave, put it to heart, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big proponent of writing stuff down. So I mean, I got plenty of notes right here, and I thank you for the time to come on and kind of speak your wisdom.
I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And if you're ever looking for a part two after maybe another year,
Yeah, for sure,
call me anytime.
for sure. Or if I'm ever up in northern Iowa, I'll for sure reach out. You can as
Please.
well if you're in the Kansas City area. If you can as
Yeah,
well.
no doubt.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate it every second.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.